while people are coming on, I can do a little brief introduction about who is sponsoring this because we have a lot of people on the call who are new to Third Act. So we're so happy that you've joined us. This is sponsored by Third Act Illinois, and we are a national part of a national organization of seniors 60 and over fighting to protect our democracy and our Mother Earth. And we'll have a lot more information about Third Act after our program. And we encourage you to stay on after 8, where we'll talk more about how you can get involved. One thing that Third Act does is partner with different organizations, including Indivisible, Chicago, and Common Power, and Sierra Club, and 350.org. So if you heard about us through any of those organizations, we're so glad that you're here, and we hope that you'll stay on after the program, where we'll tell you about specific committees that we have, ways you can get involved from your home, from the streets. So we'll be talking about May Day Strong and ways that you can be involved in the midterms. So we're really, really glad that you're here. And I'm going to turn this back over to Jim, who's going to introduce our speaker.
Okay, thank you, Peg. Yeah, thanks all of you for being here. I hope you're excited about getting some information that will be useful to you in how to be most impactful in the upcoming midterms. I'm motivated and excited in part because I work with Charles, and I'll say something. I'll tell you why about Charles in a moment. But if you happen to notice the results of the elections last night, you saw we won our 4th progressive Supreme Court seat in Wisconsin. Waukesha, which I've been in Wisconsin a lot with Common Power, Republican stronghold that the Republicans count on for lots of votes in Wisconsin, elected its first Democratic mayor in forever. And even in Georgia, where Sean Harris did lose, we saw the biggest swing to Democratic votes that we've seen. I think Charles can correct me if I'm wrong in any of this, since Trump was elected. So while we did not win, we saw a massive shift in that ruby red district to the Democrats. And then Charles, he'll probably talk about this, but he shared something last fall that was so motivating after the election that just summarized the progressive sweep in 2025. So I think there's good reason to be hopeful. There's good reason to do hard work, and there's many ways to help, time and treasure wise. And Charles will talk to us about what Common Power is doing. I will tell you that Charles is an inspirational leader. I've been with Common Power for 5 years. Charles came from the private sector and joined Common Power when I don't think it would be wrong to call it a fledgling organization that was getting going. And with his strong leadership, it has become a real force to be reckoned with, both educationally, where it brings in students from all over the world to teach them how to be activists and effective democratic advocates in their countries and in the United States, but also politically, where they partner with some of the most progressive and effective, and they do their homework. Or progressive organizations. I've been with Common Power in Wisconsin, in Montana, in Virginia. Everywhere I go with them, it's inspirational. It's usually teams, intergenerational teams of Gen Zers and young people and old folks like myself. And we just have a great time. And I think the last time I was in Milwaukee, 100 of us knocked on 10 to 15,000 doors in that election. So it's a very effective, it's become just a dynamo organization, and that's thanks to Charles, and I think you'll see why when he starts talking to us tonight. And as he likes to say, they do these analyses agnostically. I think you used that word. Can I use your word, Charles? They don't claim that we have to love every candidate that we're going to be for, but we are going to be for people who are presenting progressive agendas and have a chance to win. And that's where I think I want to put my time and money. And I get besieged, as all of you do, with requests for funds from every known, I don't know where they even find my name sometimes, but from places I don't even know of. You don't know. And you can easily send $25 to someone who doesn't have a snowball's chance of ever winning. So we want to it's really important in this election that we target and focus, and Charles is going to help us do that. So enough of me. Charles, take it away.
Jim, thank you. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you for the invitation as well. I've been looking forward to joining this group for a long time. Jim Applegate is one of your best salespeople over here in the Seattle area, and he's got folks wanting to join your third act instead of ours. Okay, so a few things here. One, I want to tell you what I'm going to do today. I'm going to tell you about Common Power, obviously. My mission here is to get you involved. If you're not more involved than you are now, or at least more clear about how you can be involved, then I haven't done my job. And if you don't have a bias towards or for Common Power and facilitating that, then I definitely have not done my job. But I'm going to do two other things as well. One, I'm going to give you some new tools that you don't have. To both learn about what's going on and then to do something about what's going on. But larger than that, and I think more importantly, and this is not just a me to you thing. This is what I do with myself. It's what I do with my staff members. It's what I do with our community members. It's one of the reasons why the young people that lead you out into the field are as good as they are. And that's because I'm going to challenge you. I am going to challenge you. I'm going to say some stuff you agree with and you're going to be super happy about. I'm going to hopefully inspire some hope with some of the stuff I show. And then I'm also I might piss some of you off a little bit. Okay. And that's a part of my job. I'm supposed to introduce new concepts to you that are a little uncomfortable because politics nowadays is very, very uncomfortable. I think is that Phil typing? I think we can hear Phil typing there.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry.
You're taking notes, Phil, for everybody. I expect
Let me
that
take my
at the end,
Let
you're
me
gonna
mute.
give us a summary at the end, okay? Thanks for joining.
Charles, can I just
in
add,
fact,
Yeah.
I have
We'll
one
have-
for you.
if people have questions
Oh,
throughout,
yes.
to put them in the chat,
Oh.
and if it's an urgent question, we can ask Charles to answer it.
Yeah.
Right away, but we will get to your questions.
Yeah, I apologize. I was supposed to give the agenda. And then after that, we're going to go to next steps, building off what Charles said about what we can do going forward. So I hope you'll stay around for that. So sorry,
Yeah.
I can do my job and lay out the full agenda.
That's okay. Can you see the screen, Jim?
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay. Every time I give a talk about politics, I have to address the most recent thing that's going on. You know, politics is especially today. It is so fast. It changes so quickly, so often, and in the Trump decade in ways that we couldn't imagine. I don't have to go through every single thing, but you all saw the tweets, the Easter tweet, the one 2 days later, the Easter tweet that made fun of religion, made people ashamed while they were celebrating another one, and talked about war crimes openly, and then another one that talked about possible genocide and hinted at nuclear weapons. You all know where we are, and that's a part of why you're here. There's more than just the top of the headlines, though. The affordability piece is something that is been affecting Americans for years, if not decades. We have reached the apex of this, and this is why there's so much political volatility. And then power in the hands of the wrong people, power in the hands of the corrupt, power that we need to win back. And at Common Power, we believe that the most common power that you should have is the power of the vote. And in a midterm year, we are going to go and get that. How are we going to do it? Well, silver lining in this Trump decade is that there are more people that have common threats that they live with than ever before. And we're seeing that in the elections. The coalition is large. The question now is, are we going to keep it? Or are we going to kick some folks out? This is where I'm coming from, literally just now. Literally just got from the airplane. My luggage is in the car. I came to the office because we have the best Wi-Fi here at our headquarters right off of First Avenue in Seattle. But this is where I just was in Georgia with that man on the right, Sean Harris, who is now responsible for the largest point swing in the direction of Democrats since Trump's second term. This chart shows 6 special elections for U.S. House seats. Oh, it's showing my Zoom. Thank you. It's showing. Hold on 1 second here. How do I get rid of this? That is really funny. I got a note from Ben Trong, who's one of my Action Academy students, that told me the screen is in the way here. There we go. All right.
Yeah.
See, look, I'm a millennial and I need tech help. Okay. We all need it, y'all. This is how we get through. It's multi-generational. Okay. Shout out to Ben Trong, who's there in the Zoom with you all. She actually leads a bunch of the work that I'm going to talk about here towards the end, our fieldwork department. But this is the pattern. This is a pattern that we're seeing. Every single election for U.S. House has swung in our direction, and it's not just about these voters. It's about what they mean to the rest of the country. In Georgia, for sure, these Republican, some of them voters that voted for Sean Harris, are going to think about Jon Ossoff in a different way. There's multi-layered reasons why we went and why these trends are so important today. The other one, this is a trip that Jim has gone on. This was the beginning of my involvement with Common Power. In fact, a lot of the ways that teams run come from the trips that I would lead out to Wisconsin about staying together and eating together and carpooling together. The folks that are in that picture with Judge Taylor are folks who were with me back in the very beginning, the first year of Common Power in 2018. Before we were even a formal organization, they were there with me then, and they go back every year to knock doors for Supreme Court justices. Apparently, every year there's one up in Wisconsin. Massive victory there, 20 points plus, and you see Judge Taylor. The expression on her face is her hearing about who we are and how far we've come and how often we come to Wisconsin, and Milwaukee specifically, to knock on doors. Now, every one of these elections is, again, important to the people who live in the state, important to the folks in the district, but they mean more to the national landscape. If you're looking for data on how to tell what trends are happening in this country, these elections are them, in addition to the one that Jim brought up, which is the one that happened in Waukesha, which is a deep red district and city. This is the new Democratic mayor. Things are definitely changing in Wisconsin. And for you all who remember when Wisconsin was a blue state, responsible for Earth Day in America, it's going back to its roots. Okay, so what is this coalition that I'm talking about? What is the coalition that we've seen just from today and then beyond? Well, definitely from Sean Harris in Georgia, who upwards of 20% of his voters were Republican, who represents the more moderate wing, actually past moderate, I'd say conservative wing of the Democratic Party. And then Judge Taylor, who is, nonpartisan, but definitely more liberal. Some of the things that she brought up, she did work for Planned Parenthood. She definitely is going to help to protect Wisconsin from gerrymandering and other things. That is so far from today what we see the coalition as. Beyond that, though, what does it look like? Well, let's add these folks here. Let's start with Ruben Gallego down in Arizona. You know him from previous elections. He made a name for himself, not just because he won the election, but because he had a different view on immigration from the perspective of Latino people in Arizona. They were not completely against immigration. They were for some sort of immigration protection and some sort of border control. And he knew that, and he said it. James Talarico, definitely a shocker to some people. It leads from a more progressive policy standpoint, a more working class and populist standpoint, and also infuses religion into his platform, which we haven't seen in a while from a Democrat, and he did it successfully. Also, massive amounts of Latino voters, Hispanic voters, as they call themselves in Texas, voting for James Tallarico. Rob Sand, another person. This is a red state. He is definitely a moderate, does not talk about the issues in the same way, but definitely talks about people in power and wealthy people rigging the system to their own benefit. He's running for governor in Iowa, and we believe that his candidacy in that state is going to be a rising tide that lifts all boats. Taylor and Harris, we talked about. Ossoff, of course, he's a known entity. He is, I think, maybe a national politician, a national figure. I won't go into presidential picks, but he's somebody who has the background. He's got the ground game in Georgia, the connection to diverse communities, and the sane, measured take on this moment while still talking about populist policies that are on the rise here. And then Spamberger and Sherrill are ones, these are easy, these are all easy favorites. Spamberger and Sherrill just won governor races. They set precedents for being the first women to do these things, and the way they did them. Sherrill before this flipped a red district in her state. These are groundbreaking elected officials. Everybody here, I think, is very easy for all of us, or for most Democrats, to say, this is our coalition. This makes a ton of sense. This is easy. And I think that folks would also argue maybe this is how the coalition needs to move, which is further to the right. These aren't the only people that have won recently. And here's what I'm going to challenge you. Get ready. I want you to take a look at this map. Just this map alone is enough to probably piss somebody off on this call. And if you're watching this recording, you're probably feeling it too. I also, to be clear, and this Jim said this in the beginning, these are not people who I would vote for. These are all not people who I would be proud to have represent me. These are not people who I think would win in where I live. These are people who have been chosen by the folks who live in their areas to represent them. They're either currently elected officials or they are polling far in advance of their competition in their primaries. And they represent a different kind of voter. Let me go back. These are the folks that we're generally okay with. These are the people that are ruffling some feathers for different reasons. And we'll go into some of the specifics later on, but I want to challenge you because I'm challenged by this map. And also, I think this represents expanding the coalition under the Democratic Party. I'm going to challenge you again. Mm-hmm. Stratton, you know who she is. She won with support of J.B. Pritzker. She also, though, as a Senate candidate in a major blue state, has said some things that are not so moderate. She is not like Abigail Spamberger and Mikey Sherrill or John Ossoff. She's said openly that she's not going to back Chuck Schumer. She also said she wants Medicare for all. She said a lot of things that are actually have more in common with the younger generations of voters and what they're looking for. Mamdani maybe, or Katie Wilson. She also said a lot that is in common with this next person that is going to challenge you even more. This is where I expect to lose some folks. Go ahead. I'll take a minute if you need to sign off. Not a universally loved set of candidates here. The last one, especially, pretty divisive. There's some folks here that voted different ways. This is where the word agnostic comes in. Okay. This is not me choosing people based on who I would vote for. Again, this is who I think represents parts of the Democratic coalition that we either need to win for the midterms or that we need to win back that we lost in 2024. And you know the demographics, young people, young men, new voters, some immigrant voters that decided to stay home or shifted to the right. These people on this map, and this is not exhaustive, but it's a sample of a vast spectrum of politics in America. I think that some major donors in America believe that what we need to do with this window, and some of you understand the concept of the Overton window. It's, you know, what's possible and what we think, you know, what we all hold it to be normal. Some folks think we need to move it to the right, that we need to become more conservative or at least more moderate to go and get those voters that Sean Harris told us that we have. And that makes a lot of sense. It makes a ton of sense. If you've got kids and nieces and nephews and grandchildren, they will tell you that we need to move to the left, and that it's not the Sean Harris of the world. It's Mondani and Kat. Like, this is what we need to do. Instead of that, we need to move to the left. There's a case to be made there. Mondani got a bunch of Trump voters from the Bronx. These young upstarts are getting Republicans to vote for them as well. This is what I believe. I believe the coalition needs to be broadened. We don't need to shift it to the right or the left. We need to broaden it to accept everybody. That is how we're going to win in the midterms. And that's how we won in 2025. Jim mentioned that I spoke in the fall last year and it felt inspirational. And that's because we won everything. Every single election that we went for in the fall, we won. And most of them were for Democrats, but some of them were Democrats against Democrats, and we still won those too. And that's because we understand what I just told you, is that we need to broaden the coalition and not shrink it. And if we do that, if we broaden it, we'll get more of this. The reason why this happened in November and all the arrows are pointing to the left is because we broadened the coalition in ways that we didn't think was possible. Okay, here's your tool. This is your first tool. First off, 30 flips since Trump took office. Some of you may know this website is called The Down Ballot. I think it's the-downballot.com. Okay. These are congressional elections, they're US House races, and they're state Senate and state House or Assembly elections all over the country, starting in January when Donald Trump took office. After he took office, Iowa, Pennsylvania, Virginia, all over the place, New Jersey, all over the place, Mississippi, Georgia, Texas, Arkansas, New Hampshire, Florida. These are massive flips. And these are not even the ones that we lost by less. These are not even the Sean Harris of the world. These are the ones that we completely flipped from one side to another. Write this down if you want to go and look at this tool. If we've got more time, I can jump into it and show you. There are tabs at the bottom of this. That's a Google Doc that they made public for everybody, if you know how to operate a Google Doc. But those tabs in the bottom have every race in 2025. They've got all the ones in 2026. They got the number margins of victory. They compare them to the 2020 election and the 2024 elections. This is a great tool for tracking. This is a nonpartisan website that's been tracking for years, and this is one of the most definitive tools for tracking how we are progressing in elections in this country. All right, the down ballot, 30 flips, y'all. That's enough to give me hope. Here's some of what's happening when it comes to the House. So these charts come out all the time, and we lived through this, so we saw it. The most important piece of this
Look at that.
is right here. It's right, these trend lines here. Now I'm going to show you some other charts. This one's important because it's net favorable views of congressional Democrats among Democrats and congressional Republicans among Republicans. This is how they think of themselves. And it's about the House specifically. This is how we get those flips, is the people within these parties are saying, this is what I think about my congressional elected officials or candidates. It's trending in our favor. Here's another one, a little bit more complex, but you'll see here, right here, we have a motivation advantage, massive advantage, 67%. 67% motivated to vote in 2026. Now, look at the bottom, though. View their own party favorably. Republicans view themselves more favorably. They're just not going to vote for themselves. That's saying a lot. Here's another one. Party affiliation. This is as of Q1 of this year, which just ended. This one's really interesting because it shows something that is a symptom of how we got into this mess. And you see these zigzags. So you look down here, 2020, 2021, COVID's around here, right? COVID happens. And people start to be influenced by social media. They don't intermix with each other. They don't go around talking to people with different views. And so you see these massive swings back and forth on which party they feel like they belong to. And this is why we've seen people who voted for Obama and then Trump and then Biden and then Trump, and yet young people like fall off the wagon at a certain point here. What you're feeling from your families, from the public is real. And also, we are coming out of this. We are on the way to something better. This bodes very, very well for the midterms. And yet, this is Harry Enton on CNN. I want to say, if you like politics and you want to see numbers and you want to also be entertained, Harry Enton, I think, is more entertaining than Steve Kornacki. That may lose me some people here, actually. Kornacki's a favorite. Harry Enton is a lot more animated. I also love the kind of accent he's got from New York. But this is really interesting, and it's worrying too. Because even though I showed you all that about we're more fired up for voting and we've got the advantage on party affiliation, this is favorability, net favorability measured to a GOP president. 2006, 2018, and 2026. And you see Harry's got the green lines there and he's showing, okay, plus 18 for Democrats, plus 12 for Democrats, plus 5 for Republicans here. That is crazy. What that tells me is that we've got work to do still. Even though all the trend lines are moving in our favor, we can't just rest on our laurels. We've got to do work. We've got to go out and get those voters. And that's what we were doing with Sean Harris in Georgia. In the age of Trump, we do not have the luxury of only supporting the people who we agree with. We do not have the luxury of supporting the people who we agree with. Common Power was in Chicago. And I want to tell you some about what I learned by monitoring this, because it's an anomaly. This is, she's a 20-year-old journalist. She made her name fighting Elon Musk online and then turned her eye towards running for office. Again, you don't have to like her, but you should respect these numbers, especially if you're interested in what young people think and what they're doing with their votes and what they're doing with their money. 65,000 donors, more first-time Gen Z donors than the DSCC, the DCCC, Schumer, Jeffries, and BIS combined. regardless of what you think about her, regardless how you voted, we need her insights on how we talk to Gen Zers, and we need her to stay in the game. And she's pledged to. She said that she is not going to leave politics. She's going to help candidates in the midterms, and she's going to help get out the vote with Gen Zers. This is the kind of next gen leadership that we need.
So there's a question, Charles,
Yeah.
about her in the chat,
Yeah.
saying people like her ideas, but is she prepared to govern? And I know
Sure.
you're not talking about that exactly.
No.
If you could respond.
Yeah, I think that what this reminds me of is experience arguments that were leveled against minorities before the law told them that they had to be equally considered for jobs in management, and women. I'll never forget. Jim said I spent some time in the private sector. I worked 13 years at Starbucks in the corporate office, and I'll never forget when we were advocating for affinity groups because they didn't exist. And I was making the case to Howard Schultz, like directly to Howard Schultz about these things, why we needed these groups for people of color, for women, for folks with disabilities. And she talked about her experience as a woman and when the laws changed and how every single woman after the rules changed that you had to consider a woman equally for a job, that every single woman was not as qualified as the men were on paper. And the reason why that is because they didn't have the experience because they weren't given a chance. They didn't have the experience because they weren't let in the door. I think we're seeing some of that in politics today. And I think that previous generations, equally sized or similar size to millennials and Gen Zers, they got their shot when they were in their 20s as well. Joe Biden's a famous example of somebody who's been serving his entire life. Young people can govern. One of the best mayors that Seattle's ever had, that served 3 terms, had never been an elected official and left the office being beloved. So, I mean, I think it's kind of a moot point. She didn't win. What she represents now, though, is a voter base that should be listened to. And the fact that she still wants to be a force in politics and bring young people to the polls should be admired. This is also important. I think people see young people with populist ideas or that they feel are further to the left. We like to slide people on the scale and think that that's it. She got the most votes in the most conservative and the most progressive parts of her district. The data doesn't lie. We have opinions and we have biases. And then there's the data. And the data says that in this district, the most conservative voters and the most progressive ones voted for her. Again, it doesn't mean she should have won. It just means you should listen to her now, and you should maybe listen to people like her that are in other parts of the country. Here's another piece that we should be listening to. This is movement amongst Democrats and a movement amongst voters and what they think about Democrats. And you see that the political ideology, the square I place on very liberal, has seen the most movement out of every single block. You've got very liberal, you've got liberal, moderate, conservative, very conservative. Everyone's moving towards us, but the biggest jump has been amongst very liberal people. That is not because young people have all of a sudden come to their senses, or radical leftists have all of a sudden decided to listen to more moderate people, or democratic socialists have decided to become moderates. This is because their candidates are running and their candidates are winning. The coalition has grown, and we need to allow it to do that. This is a reality. This is where voters are all across America. And instead of fighting it, we need to adopt it into our strategy. This is the coalition. Okay. I want to speak on one more piece here, and then I'll talk a little bit about common power. This is what I started with. You know about the headlines. Here's one more. Midterm elections. This was on Maddow, I think 2 nights ago. It's Mark Warner says Trump is trying to override our voting system. She said it on the block. She said, amidst all the news and all the tweets, it's tough for this to break through, but this is still happening. For months, President Trump has made his intentions clear. He has called for the federal government to take over elections. Warner has seen the plan, apparently. According to recent reporting in the Washington Post, allies of Mr. Trump's working in coordination with the people close to White House have circulated a draft executive order that would declare a national emergency based on false claims of foreign interference in the 2020 election. You can read this on the New York Times. It goes into some detail about how they're going to do it. You may have read it already. I will tell you that what I believe about this, actually, a hint on how we fight this actually is something that we look backwards on. And the first thing I thought of actually was this.
Yeah.
This is the first thing I thought of. 11,780 votes. And the rest of that quote is, which is one more than we have, which is him admitting. And I thought about this not because I thought of the gall for a president to do this or anybody in power to do this. I thought about this because of who stopped it.
Mm-hmm.
It was not a plan that the DNC built. It wasn't a bunch of us mobilizing in the streets. It wasn't anything that we got to see. In fact, the only reason why it was recorded is because Republicans were reporting and recording Republicans. Brad Raffensperger is the one who stopped this from happening, him and his people. This just happened. This is in the U.S. House. Rep. Kiley left the party, became an independent. That's how the Republicans are at 217 right now. These are young and non-white voters. Again, that key demographic that Harris did not have in 2024. This is how they feel about Trump. Look at those numbers. There's a lot of regret. This is in October. These numbers are definitely higher. This is the Sean Harris's, folks. I believe that these voters are the ones who are going to save us from this threat. It's these voters. It's the people who represent them. The reason why Donald Trump cannot do this, the reason why I think this plan will fail is because in order for this type of massive nationwide fraud, it takes people to do the dirty work down the chain. It took the people in each state who said that they were the electors. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
It took each of them. And I think today those people are going to say no. Those people regret their vote. They're voting for Democrats or they're staying home. And they sure as heck are not going to help him steal the election. This is the last part of this. And this is us at a door in Georgia, Sean Harris, his district. This is one of our volunteers, Susan, and this is her having a conversation or about to have a conversation with a Republican at the door. It's a small anecdote, but basically we had knocked on a door twice. We were looking for a young woman and her father answered the door. And for those of you who have knocked on doors, you know that knocking on one door one time and it's the wrong door is tough. knocking on it twice, and it's a Republican, you're thinking, oh my gosh, I am in deep trouble. And instead, what happened is that this guy and his big muscles and his red t-shirt with like freedom flame something on it comes out, and he kindly says that someone's already been here, and then he starts talking about the election, and he starts talking about being a Republican, and he starts talking about Trump and all the crazy stuff that he's doing, and he starts talking about how it's so tough to support him now, and he doesn't know what to do. And for a good 5-10 minutes, Susan is there talking to this guy, and it's a counseling session. And you realize this guy's not talked to a Democrat, doesn't have conversations with Democrats, definitely not about politics. And he decided to have it there. He decided to have a mini counseling session with somebody who was a Democrat at his door. This is the work that Common Power does. This is how we get more of these Republicans to our side. This is how we stop Trump from trying to steal the election. One voter at a time, one door at a time. Okay, I'm going to pause for some questions here. Jim, I know you want me to show them how to get involved, but I also want to be cognizant of time. So let me know what you want to do.
So we can open it up. There are no more questions in the chat, but we can open it up. All you have to do is raise your hand, which you can find under React at the bottom of your screen. And as soon as I see a hand, those slides were just outstanding, excellent, hopeful. I think we all really appreciated seeing some of the data, feeling some hope. So Mike B. from Third Act Central, go ahead.
So I wanted to ask because I've seen some recent push towards us being Illinois, towards Michigan. And I wanted to get your feeling on that because it seems like there are a lot of opportunities there to convert various, I think there are half a dozen opportunities since you have the governor coming up and
Oh, yeah.
multiple congressional seats, I believe. So,
Yes.
you comment
Yes.
on that?
Yeah, Michigan will continue to be a very important state. It is a part of the traditional blue wall, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. I find it tough to know which direction Michigan's going. There's a massive Senate race right now, very divisive, and you'll note its absence from my map, and that's because I don't know which way the people are going. And unlike other Senate races, there are other Senate races where I can tell what people think. I go into another controversial one. Graham Plattner. Graham Plattner has all kinds of things wrong with him as a candidate. Very tough for us nationally. And yet in Maine, he's polling multiples. I mean, it's like 10, 20, 30%, depending on the poll. It's very clear how the people of Maine feel about Graham Plattner. I don't know how the people of Michigan feel about their Senate choices. It's pretty close. The candidates are very similar. The top 2 or 3 are all similarly situated. They represent massive populations with vastly different like religious anchors. It is a tough place to be. I want to get involved there. We will definitely be there in the fall. And I'm not sure about the primary.
Thanks.
Thanks,
There's
Mike.
a question too about Iowa.
Yes. So Iowa's on our map. Iowa is very important to us. Iowa is a state. It's one of those states that it didn't make the 30 flip list, but there were at least 3 elections since Trump has been in office that have swung in our direction. And it's ripe for the picking. Iowa is a place that the candidate there, Rob Sand, who's running for governor, has figured out how to talk as a Democrat. about people in power, about the wealth disparity, about how folks with privilege are taking more than they need, and it's resonating with people all over the country. Iowa is a big farm place as well, and so he's hitting on these home issues that a lot of folks in red states are talking about, and I think we've got a real shot there. I feel really, really good about Iowa.
Great. And Rika, go ahead.
Thanks. I'm curious what you think about the odds that Sherrod Brown can take his Senate seat back, and I would actually throw Mary Peltola's race in there,
Oh yeah,
basically because I hear from her for money like 3 times a day.
all the time, all the time.
Yeah.
Let me start with Peltola because I think I don't know if there's a candidate that has like a universally positive reaction in the same way that Mary Peltola does in the Senate. Everyone was hoping she would run, and when she announced, everyone was excited. Everyone in Seattle wants to fly up there. I'm having to cap our trip up there so that everyone doesn't go to Alaska because I need them in these other places around the country. Um, and so I think she's got a great chance. I think she's got the best chance that anyone's ever had to take a Senate seat up there. Her background is very unique, and I think she would be a one of a kind representative, a person who's governing very, very uniquely. I think she would set a precedent for people in her generation and for Indigenous people all over the country. I think she's a great candidate. Sherrod Brown is the opposite. Nobody says Sherrod Brown, and then everyone gets excited. Nobody. Sorry if you're the one person who does, but he ran last year and he lost, and he lost last cycle and he lost. And he's been in the Senate for a while. He's a known entity, not very exciting. He would tell you himself. Very good at governing, not great at campaigning. Right? He's like some of the other senators, Tammy Baldwin. We've got one here and two here in Washington State. Very good at governing, not great at running for office. I think that his economic policies are going to push him through, and I think that the rising tide against not just Trump but the GOP is going to give him a real chance. I feel better about Roy Cooper and other folks. I feel better about Maine than I do about Sherrod Brown. I feel better about Texas, actually, than I do about Sherrod Brown. But I think he's got a shot.
Diane, did you?
Yes. Speaking of the Senate, I was wondering what you think in terms of the possibility of us taking over the Senate.
So yeah, we have turned all of our attention to the Senate, all of our prioritization to the Senate. We believe that the House is won, and this is being recorded. I'm on record saying this. It'd be very hard for us to lose the House, everybody. Okay, very, very, very difficult.
Right.
Everything's trending in our direction. Because they're smaller districts, people can fully customize the people who live in their district, and they can be vastly different from each other, even in different parts of the state. So Democrats have learned how to run in their House districts. The Senate is where the real fight is, and because it looks like because James Tallarico is such a great candidate in Texas, because Graham Plattner's have such a strong showing, and because the national trends are wind at our, because Mary Peltola announced, now we've got a real shot. We've got a real shot, and this is what we're pushing for. So we are going to take twice as many trips to Senate states as we planned. We're going to shift some of our resources from the House races that we plan on knocking on doors in, and we're going to send them over to the Senate, because that's where we think that we actually think we have a shot. Yes.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Feels good.
It sure does. A miracle.
Yeah.
So, Jim, do you want to share how people can get involved with Common Power?
Can I actually share the site here, Jim?
Yeah.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Okay.
I've got that I've got a list of places for you at the end of this, but
Excellent.
this is one of them.
Well, I wanted to show you. So here's our exhaustive map right here. So these are all of these states and districts. The blues and the greens. These are all places where we're going right now, and we're likely to add some more to this. But if you take a screenshot of that, it'll show you the districts and the. I can also send this to you later, Jim, if you want.
Sure.
So somebody mentioned Michigan here. There's your Senate, the 4th, the 7th, the 8th, and the 10th. Iowa again, Senate, governor, 1, 2, and 3. Lots at stake here. These are laddered races, and I want to show you this because if you're thinking about traveling to a state, okay, if you're thinking about knocking on doors, when you knock on doors in Iowa and Michigan, when you want to get the most bang for your buck, you knock on one door, you're talking about the House, the Senate, the governor, and a state ledge all in one. Maybe comptroller and dog catcher. You're talking about if you go to these two states, you're knocking on one door and you're getting somebody to vote for all of these down the line. Maine has got everyone but the governor. Georgia's got everyone but a House seat. And then it gets a little thinner as you go. Ohio's another one. We've got a lot at stake there. So this is what we use to prioritize as well. This is why Iowa had to be on our map and why Michigan definitely will be in the general. So that's one piece. The next one is on our website. And so Jim will send this to you. It's just commonpower.org. And this is what our homepage looks like. If you go up to volunteer here at the top, though, there's a drop down and then it'll say take action, and it'll take you to a page that has this, and you may have to scroll down. But if you're looking for a definitive tool for where Common Power is prioritizing and heading to go knock on doors, it's these named states. So when you go to this map, it's interactive. You can click into these, the light green ones right now. You can click into these and join teams that are heading out. California, Iowa, Wisconsin, Tennessee, Georgia, Maine. These are teams that are heading out. There are pages that talk about these elections, who's running for office, who we're working with, all of that. If you're curious about what these dots are, these are hubs where we actually have people that are on the ground in these places that are Common Power hubs, and they gather regularly for No Kings things and for all kinds of resistance stuff. And then right now they're getting ready to send people from these places to elections that are close to them. Now, if website is something that you don't want to use or it's too much information, some websites are pretty robust. Ours is for sure. You can actually download our app. If you do nothing else, actually, you can go to the App Store on your phone and download the Common Power Action app. And this is actually the tool that you use to join our teams, our travel. And when you go there, you'll see all the trips that we're heading to right now. This is from today. There's a beginner-friendly trip that is gearing up for Atlanta, May 1st through May 6th. There's one in Bakersfield, California, that prefers Spanish speakers if folks can do that. And then if you're not quite ready to travel, you can start training. You can get into trainings and take our 101, our 102, or 103 to kind of see the way that Common Power knocks on doors together. And then if you happen to live in Texas, you can join our folks on the ground knocking on doors in another house race there in Texas. And Jim will send all this stuff out to you after the call.
And if people want to know what it's really like, we have Jim as somebody who can talk about it. He's been on many trips. And us seniors, we love to travel, right? Diane, did you have a question?
I do. My question is, there's quite a few of us that have been working in Michigan and Wisconsin for years, and largely we do it through Indivisible when we're doing it outside of Illinois. And I'm just wondering how you do things differently. I mean, what would it mean to work with your team in those areas, like in Michigan for the general?
Yeah. So when we travel all together. So we go on these trips where you travel with a cohort, and you're basically there's a beginning of the trip and there's an end of the trip. And what that does is it allows the folks on the ground to get ready for the influx of people. So those of you who have traveled to knock doors on your own, you know that you basically look up a campaign office and you just show up, and whoever's there is helping you. And it could be, you're right the weekend before an election and the office is full and it's buzzing and people are ready to receive you and you feel like you're taken care of and you go knock on doors. It could also just be one kid who just got the job, doesn't quite know what they're doing. And now because you've knocked on doors more, Diane, you're trying to show this kid how to, cut turf or, show you around the neighborhood. And we like to avoid that. So we tell them ahead of time, hey, we've got in Wisconsin, 30 people went to Wisconsin and knock on doors this past weekend. We've got 30 people. They're going to be led by a team lead. We're going to call you ahead of time and plan with you. And then when we land on the ground, because we don't charge them any money, because we don't ask them to, for a place to stay, and because we lead our own people. Every team travels with team leads because we lead our own people. When we land, they have turf ready for us. They give us turf numbers. They have literature already boxed up and ready for us. Most of the time they deliver it to the hotel for us. And then we have our own kind of welcome session in the morning. And then because we brought so many people all at once, we'll often have the candidate come and speak with us. We'll have the leader of the Dems come and speak to us because we coordinate so closely. We'll use their office for our break time or something like that. And we just get treated really intentionally because it's a relationship that we form, and then we get welcomed back again and again and again and again. We are a priority in Wisconsin because we show up there every year. The other part of that, and this speaks to what Jim was saying, is that what we understood about this in the beginning is that this was not going to be a one and done fight. This is going to be kind of a long slog, right? We knew that Trump was going to be this massive thing that would change elections forever, change politics forever, and that we could not just show up for one midterms or one November, and that we needed to come over and over and over again. And now we're talking about this Trump decade. In a Trump decade, there are people that knocked on doors with me in 2018 that cannot physically knock on doors with me in this year. They can't do it. They can't physically do it. So we've got to invest in the generations that are going to take over for us. And what Common Power does is the team that leads you out into the field, or the staff members that are talking to the campaign, or planning your strategy, or telling you who to go with and where to go. And these are young folks that do this. These are the next generation leaders. And so Jim is often knocking on doors alongside these people. If not, he's taking direction from them. And so you going in this team model actually helps to cultivate that new talent that will then take over for you.
And then they know about the blues festival that's happening that evening, and take me with them to the blues festival. So I didn't even know there was one, but they took me, so it was fun. So
there you go. And all it takes is one blues festival to get Jim for life.
So we have another question, and we only have another minute or two, but I do want to say we don't want to put different organizations that are doing this important work in competition with each other. We need all of our partners. We need all the indivisible chapters that are doing this important work. We need Common Power. We're not, favoring one over another. We need them all. And after we finish this segment and we talk about how people can get involved, I'm actually going to ask Jack to say a little bit about when you sign up with Indivisible, because it's also very, very organized and well thought through. So I just want to make that point. We're not in competition. We have Vivian, that will be our last question, and then last thoughts from Charles.
I also want to chime in on that real quick. If you've got folks that you work with in the state, there is nothing better than a solid relationship. Relationships are everything. That overrides any kind of process or anything like that. keep the people that you know close. That is what's going to get us through this, are people that you know and us helping each other out.
Thank you. Vivian, go ahead.
Thanks. I've canvassed through the years, and I've found more and more recently people don't answer the doors as much.
Mm.
And when they do, there's more hostility, maybe. I don't know if that's something you're seeing and whether there's a way around that.
Yeah, it's interesting. This is again the Trump decade and the contentious politics, and the increase in civic engagement means that more people are knocking on doors and trying to get folks to vote. I think it is impossible to get around. I think that door knocking, especially with the advent of AI, um, door knocking and face-to-face conversations are going to be some of the only way that you get to hear the truth that you believe about a candidate. So much of what we see online nowadays, yeah, I'm not sure if that person actually said that. And there's so much spam, and there's so much email, and there's just the volume of digital outreach is so high that in-person outreach is sometimes the most viable solution, alternative to that. And so, yeah, I think that some people are they're a little more irritable about this, and then you also have these communities like in Wisconsin where they've actually gotten used to it. They understand it's like a seasonal thing. They're going to come and get my vote. And I think that the thing that needs to happen is that if we keep winning, and Democrats keep winning, if sane democracy defenders keep winning, and then policies are put in place that actually help those people that feel super annoyed by their doors being knocked on, if we solve this wealth inequality issue, if we stop these forever wars, then folks will think differently about people knocking on your doors for voting, because it will have done something. It will have meant something. And so that's kind of where we should be heading, I think, is choosing people who are not going to continue the status quo and are going to bring in new ideas so that we can move this country in a different direction.
Thank you. The comments in the chat are so positive about what an incredible presentation that you've provided for us, and I think motivated us. I'm excited to get our folks. We have a poll for people to fill out about what you'd like to do, that I'm going to ask Susan to send to everybody. Final thoughts, Charles. I know that you have to go at 8 and it's 8. We so appreciate hearing from you.
My final thoughts are, one, thank you all for doing what you're doing so far. I know that nowadays it's in fashion to get in front of a group of people and tell them to get to action and get to work, and we are we're doing everything we can. And so thank you for doing what you can do. I appreciate it. You're here. Some folks are not here, and they're also doing the work. Thank you for doing what you can do. I would say try to cut through the noise as we head into the midterms. There's going to be well-meaning people from all over the place. There's going to be new ideas that are going to get spun up. There's going to be all kinds of things, and you're going to have to get more discerning with your time and your money. You're going to have to say no more to some organizations and some people who want you to join up. And it is better to go deeper with fewer things that you're working on than it is to spread yourself thin. And relationships, if the country does not head in the right direction at the end of this year, we will need each other. That is what we'll need. So if you know people, if you know an organization, if you've been working with an indivisible in a different state, stick with the people that you know and build those bonds even tighter, because we're going to need each other, and they're going to need you. You're in a blue state. There's folks in these battleground states, in these red states. You got family out there. They're gonna need you more than they know. They're gonna need Illinois.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank
And
you.
we hope to see you again. And Third Act is national, Charles. So
Yeah.
try to reach some other third. We are people that really show up. We're very much